My name is Lolo McGrath, and I'm the Chief Brand Officer.
My name is Mister Gator, and I am the President of Primetime Pro Wrestling. And you're listening
to the Big Gold Belt Podcast.
All right, we are here live at DC 9, the Big Gold Belt Podcast. It's your boy, Heel Will Mahoney, here with 2 Chains, and we are live on location because big things are happening in DC with the debut of Primetime Pro Wrestling in just over 1 week, May 26th, coming to the district, indie wrestling for, I'm pretty sure, possibly the first time. If not the first time in at least a decade and a half.
Nobody has told us any differently yet, and I keep on waiting to get some know-it-all in the inbox, but they haven't arrived yet. So they're not on Twitter, so.
It is possible someone ran some kind of unlicensed outlaw show somewhere in the district at some point. But as far as being a licensed and bonded and insured, fully functional wrestling
legal,
above board, real deal. Primetime's got all the I's dotted and the T's crossed, and we are here with the founders, the people behind Primetime Pro Wrestling. Of course, friend of the show, former guest, Nick Gator, Coach Gator, now Mister Gator. So, Earth 3? Earth 4? which one?
I'll say we're on Earth 2.
Earth 2.
And Earth 1 is, the bridge to Earth 1 is currently closed, but you never know when it could open up, and you never know when I could don the sweatsuit again and
Uh-oh.
in the ring. You never know.
Evil promoter is always a gimmick that's been done to death. You never know when that might happen. Or that could be happening with our new face, Miss Lolo in the house here.
Hi. Hello, Lolo McGrath here.
There you go. And thank you for providing us with the perfect location.
Yeah, I mean, when you asked if we could host it here and I had to speak to the manager, I am the manager. So I said yes.
It's good
Actually,
to know
I think it was
people.
maybe my suggestion right out the gate, but.
Yeah, no, you definitely jumped on that, and it's always good to have connections for very professional-looking setup today. But better than us just doing this online and just, me shoved in the room with hobo banging on the door and people running in and out and background noise. A fine setup here today at DC 9, which will also be the site of the after party for Grapitol City, the debut show of Primetime Pro Wrestling on Sunday, May 26th.
And even if you don't come to the show, if you can't come to the show, if you didn't get your tickets in time, you are welcome to come. The show will run in the afternoon. Doors open at 3. Bell time is 3:30. The after party starts immediately following the show. So if you follow us on Twitter and Facebook, we will let you know when everything is wrapping up. And everyone is welcome to come to the after party. There's going to be some giveaways. There's going to be some opportunities to learn more about what's happening next for Primetime. So anyone, if you can make it to the show, that's great. If you can't, come to the after party. There'll be lots of stuff going on.
Right on. First off, I don't think it's been said yet, but congratulations on selling out your first show with plenty of time still left. That's a huge accomplishment, as those front row seats didn't even stand a chance online as they were gone in the blink of an eye. But
it's a very unusual situation. So the day that the tickets went on sale, I was in the hospital. I was laying in my hospital bed.
Yeah.
And there was a little, not issue, but a little discrepancy with the time zones with brown paper tickets.
Okay.
So they were supposed to go on sale at 9 a.m. Eastern, but they ended up going on sale at 6 a.m. Eastern. And it would have been fine except we had a couple of eagle-eyed trolls on brown paper tickets.
Trolls who purchased tickets to our show.
Yes. Fine.
Thank you, trolls. Thank you.
Only in the best meaning possible. But they had been monitoring it, and so when they went on sale, they went out, and I'm laying in the hospital, and it's like 8:15, and I'm thinking, well, tickets aren't supposed to go on sale for like 45 more minutes, but we're not going to stop. So we tweeted out, tickets are on sale early. We sold out the front row before 9 o'clock. We sold out the second and third row seats. There were the other reserve seats in the next 3 hours. And then sometime, I think last week, we sold out all of our standing room seats.
Yeah. I think my first question I want to start off with is that, like Will said, it's undocumented, but this legit may be the first time an official, authentic promotion is being run in DC, which is a huge accomplishment, but yet responsibility as well, because everyone has viewed DC as a stomping grounds for someplace that deserves wrestling. we get, WWE run through here a few other times, but no other promotions really do it. But there's without a doubt a huge community in this area that's thriving for professional wrestling here in the district. As you see by your tickets, they didn't stand a chance because people are hungry for it. But what does it mean for it to be right here in your hometown, in the district, creating something that's, it's going to go down in history? Because, with the resurgence of how professional wrestling is, every time anything is done, it's leaving a mark at this point. And now you're leaving a mark on the capital here in Washington D.C. and it's yours. What does it mean to you guys?
Well, it's a really big responsibility. I've been in DC for the last 7-8 years, but I'm not a native Washingtonian. I'm a Washingtonian now by nature of having no representation in Congress. But I'm not a native Washingtonian. And when you come in and you want to introduce something completely new in a city that hasn't had it before, and it is a city like Washington that, the joke is nobody's actually from Washington. That's bullshit. There are lots of people from Washington.
Right here, baby.
There are lots of native Washingtonians. There are lots of people who are local to the DMV who have been part of sports scenes, music scenes, entertainment scenes, way longer than I ever dreamed of living in Washington. So you have a responsibility to that fan base to look for talent that is going to make them happy, to put on a show that feels very Washington. And so, having the first show set and hopefully more thereafter at DC Brau was just a perfect way to do it. So that's been step one of really making sure it felt like DC.
I would say Washington has a great wrestling fan base, and from the perspective of a promoter, of a booker, of someone looking for talent, we have folks a 4 or 5 hour car ride to DC. You can pull people from the Carolinas, you can pull people from West Virginia, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, and we have for this first show. I have 2 carloads of folks coming down from New York to participate in this show. So we can provide a great amount of talent for a great fan base, and we're hoping that this first show will lead to bigger things down the road. It's a little bit of a catch-22. You want to be ready for the future. You want to be able to be prepared for things, but you also don't want to put the cart before the horse, and you don't want to go overboard on over-preparing for a future, because as we've seen in the announcement that came out yesterday about one of our tournament participants, a lot of things in wrestling are in flux. People, unfortunately, get hurt. People get signed. People get opportunities, and you have to be fluid while also being ready and prepared.
The life of an indie promoter, things always changing on a day-by-day basis when you're running up to a show, regardless of whether it's your first show or not. And this is both of you guys' first time doing the promotion thing.
My first rodeo. Literally, this is my first rodeo.
New to the deal with indie wrestling promotion. And, the biggest home run has got to be selling the place out weeks in advance. That's pretty darn unheard of, pretty impressive for a first-time show. And I think a lot of that's coming out of the Virginia area having the scene built up for the past few years. So people got into the mode of indie wrestling. So that was great. And kind of building the local scene beyond just what we had here in Maryland forever, where there was nothing in closer. But now you're finding it's crossing the river. It's coming into DC for the first time. The closest thing I can remember is in the late 90s, I remember a random lucha show that apparently happened somewhere on the UDC campus. And I didn't even hear about it till after the fact.
Which UDC campus?
I don't even remember. Because I didn't even hear about the darn thing till after it happened. And I was like, what? But otherwise, as someone who's been here from the 80s on, I do not ever remember there being indie wrestling inside the district. It was always either Virginia or Maryland. So unless little sneaky things like that, you guys are breaking the mold. So what's made it happen? What's gotten the door opened to making things happen inside DC?
Well, I have to give almost all the credit for the specificity of being in the district to our chief brand officer, Lolo, who's had great contacts, great networking, great connections. We have to give a lot of credit to the DC Combat Sports Commission and Andrew Huff, who's one of the commissioners, for their ability to adapt and evolve and see pro wrestling as something that they want to have inside the district. It has not been easy. It has not been something that I would wish on anyone else, but it will be worth it. And I look forward to a time where other promoters and other shows can be run inside the district because of the work that we've done.
Yep.
To bring down the price of wrestling licenses, for example. To bring
Yeah.
down the price of promoting licenses. To bring down some of the requirements well within range. You still have to be bonded. You still have to be insured. You still have to put down certain things, certain requirements. But to get them more in line with what happens in Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, where there's a thriving independent wrestling scene. There are multiple wrestling promotions going on in all of those places. As a promoter, getting into the district is a tough nut to crack, but that's what's going to make it all that more worthwhile. To be honest, we are the only other wrestling company in the district other than the big guys.
Yeah.
So when I tell a wrestler, $25, physical, blood work, it's a hassle. I am very grateful to all the people that are coming in, all of the great wrestlers that are coming in, because I can book them, or Vince can book them, but that's all they can do with that DC license as of right now.
Very true. Very true.
Hopefully, and we've talked with other folks, hopefully this will lead to bigger things for wrestling within the district, but I am so grateful for folks that have been able to rally behind us. But as far as being DC specific, we wanted to make sure that we were standing on our own feet, but we are standing on the shoulders of lots of people who have put in lots of time, lots of effort, lots of work in growing the wrestling scene in the DMV, and now we're ready to take that to the next level. We're ready to take the next steps and put on great shows for the great wrestling fans, allow our wrestlers to develop their charisma, their personalities, their athletic endeavors, have very rewarding experiences here for everybody.
Yeah. Ooh, so Gator, you do have a past of
I do have a past.
of bringing in some of the best talent from all over the world within this area. You've definitely left a trademark there. And Lolo, you've also, as well as been somebody that's been established as somebody that's with good connections and innovative as far as in your endeavors into getting into the wrestling world. I want to know, how did you guys meet and decided that this was a relationship that was going to work, that created this historic thing that's going down in a week or so? And can you talk a little bit about maybe the challenges you guys have had? Because literally for me, it was like, hey, there's a void. Oh, but then we have something going on. Like, it's just like boom, boom. Like, you know, like fast. And again, I've spoke to Gator plenty of times, and the guy's brains is constantly turning. So I want to know exactly how did this relationship come about, and when did the gears start rolling for you guys as a team?
Well, I was on Tinder one night.
Where all good stories start.
You didn't know which way you swipe, sir.
And he said something awful, and I'm only chief brand officer as a form of blackmail. But I remember the first time I ever locked eyes with you, Gator. You probably don't remember, but he was still Coach Gator, and this was at the JCC. This was a Nova Pro show, and he was an asshole, you know, stealing the microphone, ripping up people's signs, just being a dick. And I was walking to go get some empanadas, and Carly Rae Jepsen's "Call Me Maybe" was playing, as it would 10 times in a row at Nova Pro shows, and this one is just sitting there mouthing the words and dancing to himself. And
It's a very catchy song, and this is the truth. I don't remember where I was. I might have been at a CVS. This is like in the last 2 weeks. I was at a CVS, or I was at a Harris Teeter. I was somewhere, and "Call Me Maybe" was playing. And it's the 70-year-old cashier and I are just bopping along to the music. It's a very catchy song. Like in the old days, you know, I would be bopping to like Glenn Miller or Louis Armstrong, but now I got Carly Rae.
The magic of Carly Rae.
it was a very pure moment. And when I started my brief rise and demise as a ring announcer, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. Like, nobody told me this is what you do. I was given a list. I was given a crash course, walking behind a different ring announcer for one show, and that was the whole thing. And, you know, being at the bar for the unofficial after parties that would happen after shows, I got to talking to Gator because I mean, you just take microphones from people, so I figured you knew what you were talking about, and that's how our friendship started. But That's how I figured out that you knew a few things about a few things. And I didn't know anything about anything, so.
Well, when you live 238 years,
You know a few things.
you get some stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lolo and I connected at Nova Pro shows, and when everything sort of started to evolve and change, and the world happened, it was really Lolo that really wanted to look into DC specifically, because there was a void, and somebody's gonna fill that void, and it's this horrible predicament you have where you want to get into the void and you want to be first and you want to work with your partners and you want to work with people in the area. You don't want to be contentious. There's other cities, I won't name any names, but there are other major cities in the U.S. that have multiple independent wrestling companies, and there's a lot of friction. They butt heads.
Yep.
And that's not what we want. Like, we have a very good relationship with the folks at Flying V. We have a very good relationship with the folks at Crab. We have a very good relationship with Classic Pro Wrestling down in Virginia, with Fury Pro Wrestling. So we didn't want that, but we really wanted DC, not Virginia. We really wanted to have DC. And I think Lolo's contacts and the work she had already put in, going on podcasts, talking about things, talking to folks, it was a perfect opportunity for someone with the side of things that Lolo wasn't as familiar with the wrestling, with the talent, with, some booking, and even before I was managing and doing things behind the scenes, as wrestling fans, we always fantasy book. Why didn't they do this? Why did they do that? I don't understand this heel turn. I don't understand that, what have you. And being able to take that and make it your own. Like, I always have these ideas in my head about wrestling stuff. And now I can actually make them happen. Some of them are terrible. I have this awful idea that, why don't they ever do a ladder match that only lasts like 3 minutes?
Ooh.
For example, it's just the setup and the payoff, like everything would be bad about it, but you never see it. How about the first time someone grabs a ladder and goes up, they just win?
Yeah.
Just runs right on up there, snatches the belt down, and it's over.
Right.
Yep.
I think about stuff like that. But how, we were able to really connect, and Lolo visited me in the hospital, and
I told the nurse I was his kid.
Well, when you're 238 years old, it stands to reason there are some offspring out there.
and to have a child at 200 plus years old is really remarkable.
Well, I came rolling in, guns blazing, like, you got to let me in there. Like, where is he? Just go, it's fine.
So with Lola, we were able to do some things like get our sponsors, and we are very proud. DC9, where we're at right now, hosting the after party, a fine sponsor, has a wrestler in the Battle Royal coming up on May 26th. Penn Social, I'm sure we'll have events there. DC Brau, that's hosting the event.
Is DC Brau.
Is DC Brau. And I had a DC Brau Pilsner the other night. That was great. And we've also had, off topic a little bit, we've had some great angel investors. Angels that just want to help. They want to see this succeed. How can they do things? They don't want recognition. They don't want, they don't have a business to promote. They're not getting anything out of it other than helping us.
I had a regular donate money just because.
Because
Yeah, here's a lump sum of money. You're doing this thing, and that's the DC I know.
Yeah.
So.
And it really does take a village to put together a professional wrestling show, and that's why you see promotions will run 1 show, 2 shows, or they'll run 3 times a year, or they just won't succeed because of the money, the time, the energy, getting people to get their licenses. And there's one guy out there who I've booked in the Battle Royal who still hasn't gotten his license and hasn't even gotten his blood work for his license. He's someone that I once managed. So Mikey Banker, I'm going to say this publicly, because I've said it privately. If you don't get your license for May 26th, I'm never booking you ever.
Oh, promo.
Ever, ever, ever.
True, true.
I cannot help you.
Yeah,
I'm really sorry.
There'll be no Mikey Banker towels. There will be no photo shoots. There will be nothing. I won't even let you come in to help set the ring up.
Oh, can't even put some chairs up, Mikey. You got to get your act together, man.
Yeah, that also means he can't be on the show again because he's reached out and said,
Nope. Persona non grata.
if you're not working, then there's nothing to talk about.
All right, so his first time promoters, getting all this set up, making this all happen, and getting the pieces in place in a record amount of time. All of maybe, 2 months or
I
so?
have no idea how the fuck we did this.
What was the biggest challenge, the biggest hurdle, the biggest roadblock?
You had the worst of it, honestly. I'm not. You've got a college degree. I don't. So when people put paperwork in front of me, I don't know.
I think, the paperwork, and there's things that you're a wrestling fan, you get into the wrestling business, you do some stuff, you want to be a promoter. Okay, well, you got to get a ring, you got to get chairs, you got to get a venue, you got to get a $10,000 bond, you got to get $1 million in insurance, you've got to get your permit, you got to get your promoter's license. To be honest with you, the talent might be one of the easiest things, especially in an area that either doesn't have a license or a state like Virginia where the license doesn't have as many requirements. In DC, because of the medical requirements, which are perfectly valid and perfectly reasonable, but just different from Virginia and some other states, that has been a bigger challenge. So the honest answer is everything. Other than the things that Lolo has been fantastic in getting us. Getting us a venue was enormous. Getting us a venue at the price that we got was enormous. Getting talent, we had people reaching out to us that wanted to come and be a part of this, that we've had to turn away or we've had to look at for future shows, if there are any future shows, but there will definitely be more.
Good.
Breaking news.
I can't wait to finally announce my 2019 travel plans about Twitter smarts. Getting excited about it.
Yeah. So we will definitely have some information on that coming up on May 26th. But basically everything other than the great stuff that Lolo has been able to do to make things easy. But working with the commission was challenging but easy. It was just a question of getting through the paperwork. And they have some information that's a little more geared towards MMA, a little more geared towards boxing. For example, the need of a licensed timekeeper. Well, clearly, a pro wrestling show doesn't need a licensed timekeeper.
I've been a timekeeper.
Yeah. Usually it's the ring announcer or someone working that will do the time. Licensing for referees. A wrestling referee doesn't have to be trained like a boxing or MMA referee needs to. You don't need to learn the unified code of mixed martial arts to be a pro wrestling referee. The rules of pro wrestling are really there to advance your story. Spoiler alert, I hate to break kayfabe here, but the 5 counts and the 10 counts on the outside, or 20 counts depending on the promotion, and all the things that a referee does, there's no model code of professional wrestling that's enacted by different states. So it's been a little bit of a learning process and working with them, but they've been very receptive, and I think we're laying some fantastic groundwork, as there were people that laid some fantastic groundwork for us coming into this. Coming in from scratch, there's no way we could have gotten this done in this time.
It was something every day. I mean, every single day.
There still is.
Yeah, there's no break in. Oh, okay, you're having a... I was on vacation, and every day there's something.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I was in the hospital, and ticket sales are going on, and things are happening, and I'm getting reports from things, and then...
He's in the hospital. I'm asleep still.
True. As someone who's not getting booked.
True squared.
But I'll say, meeting those challenges, without Lolo, and maybe Lolo without me, it would have been very difficult. Because you could have money, you could have a brain, you can have networking skills, you can have all these, but to have it in one dynamic person is nearly impossible. So, and I think we have a good separation of our work. Like, Lolo has her sphere, and she's very successful at it. I have my sphere, and I try to get by. And I have to...
Can you imagine having a third person in this?
It would just depend on the person.
Oh, my God.
It would depend on the person. From a creative side, when you start getting into... And we talk about this in general in wrestling. When you start having the booking and the creative side, and you have 10 people that are throwing in different ideas, and, you might have, I want to do this with so-and-so. By the time it gets to the promoter, by the time it gets to the final person, it's completely different.
Right. Yeah.
So it's I think having a smaller group, and that's why we got a tweet about someone that wanted to get hired as a writer for Primetime Pro Wrestling. We are not hiring any writers at present. We'll see down the road. We are the second largest pro wrestling promotion in the district by default. So we'll see down the road.
In 1 year when you run FedEx Field, then you'll need the writers.
We have 100,000 people in FedEx Field, then we'll go from there. But we're doing Primetime Pro Wrestling Access.
Right.
And Mikey Baker still won't be booked. Not even the setup like the Elimination Chamber or the Hell in a Cell Inside Access that people like to climb up and everything. You still won't be booked to set that up.
He calls me every night, Mikey, just crying.
The guilt trip is on, man.
By the way, I get compliments on the Primetime Pro Wrestling anti-Mikey Banker tweets. I get texts from folks saying, "I love the way you bury Mikey on Twitter."
I'm very, very proud of our Twitter presence because I have a list of things that really bug me, and if not naming names again, but things that drive me up the wall when wrestling promotions tweet. As long as you stay out of the eye, then you're good. I hate first person point of view on Twitter from a promotion. It's like, I made this decision. Who the fuck are you? Anyway, I'm going to go off on a tangent. I'm done. Grammar, people.
We got
grammar.
time. So we're back here after a quick little break to stretch our legs here. We're still talking with the heads of Primetime Pro Wrestling. Now, one big question that's reached my social media in Primetime Wrestling, making its name out there, is that everyone wants to know, how will Primetime be different from any other promotion? And that seems more like a vague question. And then I started getting into the specifics. And what people really want to know is, well, how is Primetime going to be different from any promotion in this area? And and that comes down to, again, we went down through it a little bit, comes down to a lot with integrity and authenticity. And again, like I mentioned in the beginning of the show, there is a huge level of responsibility considering that this is going to be in Washington, D.C. And a lot of people like to think if you're going to tap into this territory, you got to know what you're doing. So if you can address some of those questions and what does it mean to you guys?
I think 100% it is so important for this area, and particularly for the district. We are breaking new ground, moving forward on the work that's done before us, and to be authentic and to have the most integrity possible, to lay a foundation for more promoters and more promotions down the road, and being able to lift the entire DMV area wrestling scene. A rising tide lifts all ships, and I firmly believe that. So I think what's going to separate Primetime, as you'll see, and having Lolo here as someone who has a completely unique perspective on things, beyond just wrestling booking, and I will talk with her about different things, and Lolo will say, well, that's great, but we're not being representative. We're not doing all we can do in this particular area, and we want to be representative, and we want to have a diverse group of talented people, diverse in every way you can imagine. So I think what you'll see from Primetime is you'll see a lot of the heart that DC has. We want you to come to a show and know that this is a DC show. From the music that gets played, from the venue that we're in, from the things that get sold, we want you to know this is a DC show that can also be enjoyed on independent wrestling TV and by fans who are coming in from other places. So finding that area is going to be tough. And it might take more shows if we do more shows, but we definitely want more shows. So I think you're 100% that we feel a weight to do the right thing at all times and be able to set a good foundation for other promoters in DC and to rise the entire DMV wrestling scene.
I think that there is an expectation that people would naturally have that if you're working office, if you're working on the promotion end of things, you're behind the scenes, and that's it. There's a closed door, and you don't know anything. And we're secretive in terms of keeping things fun and interesting for people, but I like the fact that we're both very accessible to people over social media, to not just wrestling media, but for more mainstream outlets as well, and trying to be very communicative with the fans, because we're characters in this whole play too. So we've all learned the lesson in the DMV that all of your moves are being watched and they're always being scrutinized, and all you can do is not just your very best, but strive to be a little better too. And I think that's something that we're knocking out of the ballpark for now.
There's definitely an
So, like,
engaged.
my nudes show up on the internet at some point. Which might actually be great.
Or mine.
Gators.
Which might be great for the brand. So.
The good thing is that mine are like writings on the cave.
Right.
They're like
Hieroglyphics.
They're hieroglyphics. I think that's Gator and a cat. I can't, maybe.
Yeah, no, mine are all 2006 hipster. So, I'm still wearing a bandana.
All right. Bring it back.
Yep. So we're back here after a quick little break to stretch our legs here. We're still talking with the heads of Primetime Pro Wrestling. Now, one big question that's reached my social media in Primetime Wrestling, making its name out there, is that everyone wants to know, how will Primetime be different from any other promotion? And that seems more like a vague question. And then I started like getting into the specifics. And what people really want to know is, well, how is Primetime going to be different from any promotion in this area? And that's, and that comes down to, again, we went down through it a little bit, comes down to a lot with integrity and authenticity. And again, like I mentioned in the beginning of the show, there's a huge level of responsibility considering that this is going to be in Washington, D.C. And a lot of people like to think if you're going to tap into this territory, like, you got to know what you're doing. So if you can address some of those questions and what does it mean to you guys?
I think 100% it is so important for this area, and particularly for the district. We are breaking new ground, moving forward on the work that's done before us, and to be authentic and to have the most integrity possible, to lay a foundation for more promoters and more promotions down the road, and being able to lift the entire DMV area wrestling scene. A rising tide lifts all ships, and I firmly believe that. So I think what's going to separate Primetime, as you'll see, and having Lolo here as someone who has a completely unique perspective on things, beyond just wrestling booking, and I will talk with her about different things, and Lolo will say, well, that's great, but we're not being representative. We're not doing all we can do in this particular area, and we want to be representative, and we want to have a diverse group of talented people, diverse in every way you can imagine. So I think what you'll see from Primetime is you'll see a lot of the heart that DC has. We want you to come to a show and know that this is a DC show. From the music that gets played, from the venue that we're in, from the things that get sold, we want you to know this is a DC show that can also be enjoyed on independent wrestling TV and by fans who are coming in from other places. So finding that area, it's going to be tough. And it might take more shows if we do more shows, but we definitely want more shows. So I think you're 100% that we feel a weight to do the right thing at all times and be able to set a good foundation for other promoters in DC and to rise the entire DMV wrestling scene.
I think that there is an expectation that people would naturally have that if you're working office, if you're working on the promotion end of things, you're behind the scenes. And that's it. There's a closed door, and you don't know anything. And we're secretive in terms of keeping things fun and interesting for people. But I like the fact that we're both very accessible to people over social media, to not just wrestling media, but for more mainstream outlets as well. And trying to be very communicative with the fans, because we're characters in this whole play too. So we've all learned the lesson in the DMV that all of your moves are being watched and they're always being scrutinized, and all you can do is not just your very best, but strive to be a little better too. And I think that's something that we're knocking out of the ballpark for now.
There's definitely an
So,
engaged.
like, my nudes show up on the internet at some point. Which might actually be great.
Or mine.
Gators.
Which might be great for the brand. So.
The good thing is that mine are like writings on the cave.
Right.
They're like
Hieroglyphics.
They're hieroglyphics. I think that's Gator and a cat. I can't, maybe.
Yeah, no, mine And they're all 2006 hipsters, so, I'm still wearing a bandana in all of them somehow.
Oh my God. There's definitely an engaged fan base in this area, as we've discovered over the last few years, as the scene has grown, as it's become more established. Now, looking ahead to May 26th, looking ahead to the debut show, we got a tournament. We got a tournament going on. You're basing the whole first show around for what looks to be the Primetime Pro Wrestling Championship. Let's talk about this tournament because it looks very unique. You have a unique field of people involved on both sides of the coin, with men and women being involved in this tournament. So first show right out of the gate, you're looking to crown a champion.
Yeah, and our good friend Dylan Hales and I have talked a lot, and he is the promoter in the Subgraphs promotion, and they did something very similar on their first show, where they crowned a title holder, not even knowing if they were going to run a second show. I wanted to show everyone that Primetime Pro Wrestling is not affiliated with any other promotion. I wanted to show that Primetime was going to be here to stay, that we had long-term plans. And the best way to do that, I thought, was to be able to have a title belt, have a champion, and one promotion, one champion. Man, woman, non-binary, anyone can hold this belt, and it's a belt because you wear it around your waist, despite what other promoters in DC might say. Vince. And I wanted to have the best possible tournament, and I had always thought, and I love wrestling tournaments, when done well. And I wanted to learn from wrestling tournaments that I think could have been better, like the WrestleMania 4 tournament, for example.
You can always do better than that.
Yeah, I've always had this, like, thinking about, like, that's like the big rebooking angle for me, would be instead of having 14 people, have 6, cut out some of the matches, give them more time, and instead of Randy Savage having to wrestle 4 times and have a not as great as it could have been main event versus Ted DiBiase, he wrestles less and has a longer and better main event with Ted DiBiase. Anyway, so we have 8 participants. We have 6 that are already in. Unfortunately, Savage gentleman, Victor Benjamin, has announced that he is not medically cleared to participate. We will have an announcement soon on how we're handling that. No, we will not announce that today, unfortunately, because we are talking with several people and having conversations about how we want to deal with that. The 8th participant will be the winner of the Battle Royal. You have 13 confirmed, plus Mikey Banker, who may be the 14th or may not. But
I write a sad country song about it.
yeah. So we will have a Battle Royal, the winner of the Battle Royal. And we have people coming in from New York. We have people coming in from West Virginia. We have people coming in from all over the Northeast and parts of the South to participate. They will get the 8th spot and take on Bro Keller in the first round. So I wanted to do something interesting. I wanted to do something unique. I wanted to do something that will make us stand apart. For those of you who have asked if there will be a belt, yes, there will be a belt. And no, you can't see it yet.
But I can.
Show up on May 26th if you can. Maybe you can get a scalper ticket outside the venue. And we'll see.
It's going to be somebody with a huge table of knockoff primetime gear outside. Got baby onesies and blankets, and you want a hat?
Very, very true to the culture in DC.
That's how I get all of my good Nats tickets.
Yo.
It's how I get my neckties. All my neckties have been bought off the street. Also, in addition to the tournament, Josh Fuller, my old nemesis from Earth 1, who carried me to the best 5-minute match of my career, is bringing in the Grimy Scots
Nice.
to have an open opportunity. Any tag team in the world can come in and answer their call on May 26th. And the Grimy Scots, who are banned in the UK and are the current Highland Tag Team title holders, they want to come in and make a statement of their own. Josh Fuller is bringing them in. Josh has gone through some stuff, and he's not wrestling at the moment, but he is bringing in talent and will be a part of Primetime Pro Wrestling. So that's the event. The tournament, tag team match, maybe some surprises, grilled cheese sandwiches, and beer.
Yeah. Food is good. Food is important too. Also, Josh Fuller cutting his hair has make him take a hiatus from wrestling, huh? Who would have ever thought?
His bone structure looks fucking incredible. He looks great.
Don't encourage him to cut it more. I told him he can't cut it.
It's a nice
anymore.
cut. I like it.
We have to cut it in the ring.
Yeah, that hair needs to be up in a match. That's a payday waiting to happen. Josh was not thinking
I've
there.
talked about this with other folks. Like, if he's gonna ever cut his hair really short, he has to do it in the ring, and we're gonna do it. And if he does it, we're not doing when Kevin Nash got like the buzz cut. We're going like Vince at WrestleMania all the way.
Gotta come on.
By the way, Vince McMahon lost his hair in a match versus the President of the United States. Weird, wacky, wild stuff right there. Something to think about in the world of pro wrestling.
I like this president better.
That will thank you. Thank you. I am the best president in Washington, D.C.
My question now for Lolo. So, considering that you're half of primetime pro wrestling, traditionally
49%.
49.
Oh, minority stake.
I didn't put no money into it, so I'll take it.
What does it mean? And I think this may be across the board too. At least no one's coming off the top of my head right now. But what does it mean to be a female in independent wrestling, being a promoter and / owner?
Well, there's such a and we were talking about this a little while ago. For all intents and purposes, while I'm not technically an on-paper promoter, I'm working with promotion.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is that stereotype of the scuzzy, not just a heel in the ring, but out of the ring too, kinds of promoters. And by default, I'm hoping that as a lady, I can move away from that stereotype. But something I was actually talking with some friends about the other day. I wanted to do this thing, and so I just came in and I did it.
Yeah.
I didn't really, and I've sang the praises many times of the creative teams that I've worked with on this project. I don't think I've never. It's really weird because in every other department in my life, it's been a rule that I'm constantly having to fight for the proverbial microphone. I haven't had to do that here.
Oh.
It's like the Twilight Zone sometimes, being in spaces where men I'm working with care about what I have to say and utilize it sometimes.
That was my point.
It's very refreshing.
Yeah.
It's very refreshing. People could talk a lot of shit about the fact that, one, I haven't done this before, and two, no, I do not have the wrestling knowledge that a lot of fans in the DMV have, when it comes to wrestling. But the fact that people have been backing me and behind me and sliding into the DMs with encouraging messages and not any creepy at all, and I actually mean that, has been it's been humbling.
That's good.
People aren't terrible and shitty all the time.
That's good.
People are being really good. Good
Not-
job, everybody. Thank you, DMV Wrestling
Not just
fans.
good. That's super surprising for.
It's shocking, because people run their mouths, and
Yeah.
I run my mouth. I'm a shit talker sometimes. Like the amount people could say, she doesn't deserve that spot, but when it comes down to it, I wanted it, I asked for it, now I have it.
Nice. And I think absolutely that the independent wrestling community needs a female presence. I mean, when you're talking about safety and you're talking about just a woman's perspective.
It's the little things that you're not thinking about. Like, I'm running out with my intern next week to go make sure that there are sewing kits.
Yeah.
And, all the little tiny things that you need to be anticipating that you might not be socialized to as a man to be preparing for. But, I almost lost a bra strap at the last show that I was in. I would have loved to have a sewing kit, you know? It's those little tiny things. So making sure that there are areas where people who might not want to get changed in front of a bunch of male-bodied people might want to get changed.
Yeah.
So, and, DC Brau has made that really, really easy, too.
Yeah.
Because we do have designated dressing rooms for whoever needs a private
Nice,
space.
nice. Also, let's just tap your brain a little bit more on. Is there any other ideas? And I think this would be very important to female listeners to know how your influence is going to provide better safety, comfort, and even things that they may not be used to in independent wrestling. And which is weird because with you not really having a perspective on it, I think you're gonna provide a unique experience of saying like this is things that should be accustomed to it. Where I've spoke to different workers where there's like, oh, that never happens for us, or like and just like you said, having a female locker room, the male locker room. Sometimes there's just the locker room, if there is a locker room, you know what I mean, for changing. So, is there any other things that you've kind of pinpointed that needs to be a thing?
So, having worked at DC9 for the last 4 years, I got my start here doing security, which people laugh at, but we hire a ton of non-male security at DC9 for the exact reason of, we operate in public spaces and in spaces with alcohol. This is a brewery. There's going to be alcohol.
Right.
Your eye for how you watch people is, for better for worse, developed in a very specific way. Working a show at DC9, if I see some younger lady who might not have all of her wits about her being pulled into the green room or something, which does not happen, especially under our watch here. That kind of shit doesn't go down here. That's the kind of eye I've developed working in bars, you're everybody's big sister all the time, especially when there's alcohol involved. So, it's also a thing where, I haven't run a show before. I want to hear from women in wrestling, and I don't want it to be a standpoint of they have to go on Twitter and say, hey, dude, stop doing this. But, if we have talent who are women, who are non-binary, who are queer, who might feel uncomfortable in any way entering a new space, I want to know directly, like, what can I do to make your stay with us not just great, but I want you to feel like you are very safe here and you can come and have conversations with management that won't make you feel like you're going to ruin your career.
Yeah, or not get another opportunity. That's a huge
thing.
Exactly.
Open door HR policy from me. So, yeah, like, I don't care who you are. If you have an issue that you need discussed, please just, I make myself very, very accessible for a reason, because I think there's a need for it, especially with so much young talent coming up.
And with this being a first-time show, I mean, the sky's the limit for how you
Set
can,
a precedent.
how you can handle things. There's no bar set. It's you have carte blanche to set this up and roll this out however the heck you want. And as we know in wrestling, word travels fast.
Yep.
Word travels fast when wrestlers are out on the road.
I am on creep patrol at every minute of every day, and that will not change at Primetime Pro.
And it's one of those things, you're 100% right. I mean, wrestlers travel together, they go on the same shows, they talk to one another, they share information about this promoter, that venue, this worker, that person, oh, this happened, I couldn't believe they said that, I couldn't believe this guy did this. So there really are no secrets out there in a wrestling company, nor should there be. And in the world of social media where things are happening second by second, you're going to learn if there's an issue at a promotion in real time.
Yep.
We will learn when Ring of Honor brings Enzo and Cass in to do something in Madison Square Garden at the same time that some asshole idiot attacks poor Bret Hart. We're going to hear it as it happens. If there's an issue, when the Miz's father showed up at AIW last night, we knew about it when it happened. So, and that goes for positive stuff and for negative stuff. And, I wanted someone who was not going to be a yes person. Who was like, oh, Gator,
My
whatever.
favorite phrase is no. Can I come in without an ID? No.
Oh, Gator, whatever you want, whatever you say. No, I didn't want that. I wanted someone who was going to challenge me and make me think outside the box, make me be a better promoter, make me think about things in a different light. And that's where we're at, and that's going to be good for everybody. It's going to be good for the fans, it's going to be good for our talent, and we have a lot of great talent, and it's going to be good for DC, and it's going to be good for all of humanity in the long run.
Wrestling makes you a better person sometimes.
Sometimes.
It has the potential to.
There you go.
If wielded correctly, then wrestling
It's
can
like
make
the
you a better
internet.
person.
The internet is an incredible, great, fun place, and it is also one of the most awful inventions in the history of the world. Just like pro wrestling.
With the good comes the bad. So let's get to May 26th. You got this tournament, intergender. How's it going to work? Because you got those brackets set up with both sides of the coin, 8 people involved, 4 guys, 4 girls, I think. Well, I guess we have 1 battle royal spot, so that's in play. But we have the likes of Faye Jackson, We have the likes of, was it Ashley America?
Ashley America,
who I haven't seen.
How can you not run a show in DC and not book Ashley America?
And, of course, Ariella Nix.
Ariella Nix, the answer to your prayer, is the former First Lady of the former Gator Pit, who has 17 other title belts in her regime. She's the Capitol Wrestling Women's Champion. She's the Pro Wrestling Magic Women's Champion. She's got, 4 or 5 other promotions that might be exciting. The Maritime Women's Champion. She's the Women's Champion of Greenland.
She's the belt collector, apparently.
And we have the fourth woman, one half of Pretty Proper, Lady Frost.
There you go, Lady Frost. How can I forget Lady Frost? And, of course, on the other side of the coin, we have Bro Keller, Isaiah Frazier, and who am I forgetting?
Who am I forgetting?
Well,
that's a very good question.
It was Savage Gentleman.
That's right. That's
why
right.
forget
There we
that.
go.
Yeah, so there are 2 vacancies
2 vacancies now.
on the side. So the structure of the tournament will be the first round will have 10-minute time limits. The semifinals will be 20 minutes. The final has no time limit. They could go for like an old-fashioned Texas death match. They could go for 4 hours if that's what it takes. The after party will start at 2 in the morning.
Oh.
It's not going to happen.
That'll be the Sunday before Labor Day weekend, so we can legally stay open until 4.
If they start going,
I like that.
If they start getting close to an hour and there's no winner in the finals, then I'm going to come out and throw powder in someone's face.
You sure you're not just going to be hiding under the ring?
If you don't see me for the whole show, and I pull the referee out, and Todd will be there. Todd, who I pulled out of when I was under the ring when he was refereeing Tim Donston, Anthony Green. He will be one of our referees. So we will have 10-minute time limits, 20-minute time limits, and no time limit for the final. The first round matches will be men versus men and women versus women. Isaiah Frazier versus Savage Gentleman's replacement, Bro Keller versus the winner of the Battle Royal. On the women's side, Ashley America versus Lady Frost, Faye Jackson versus Ariella Nix. The winner of Lady Frost versus Ashley America will face the winner of Isaiah Frazier and his opponent. So there will be 2 intergender semifinals.
Whoa, I just thought about this. This potentially could have been Lady Frost versus Savage Gentleman.
Yeah.
Oh.
The stars did not align.
Oh, man.
And then on the other side, the winner of Ariella Nix and Faye Jackson will take on the winner of Bro Keller and the winner of the Battle Royal. And then the final will be the winner of the 2 semifinals. It could be woman versus woman. It could be man versus man. It could be intergender.
Everything's up for grabs in the final there. Very interesting.
Yeah, awesome. So, other than that, I think we covered about everything for the show. We're looking forward to it, May 25th. Unfortunately, 26th, excuse
May
me.
26th, Grapitol City, DC Brau Brewery. Tickets are sold out. Pay attention. There might be some announcements coming up about that. There may not. There will be. And after party at DC 9. What's the DC 9 address?
1940 9th Street Northwest. It's off U Street.
Yeah.
Can't miss it. We will have some announcements at the show, some announcements at the after party. If you want a ticket, there might be some people on the outside of DC Brau selling. We're going to have a
Good luck
food
with
truck.
that.
Yeah, we're going to have a food truck.
Nice.
We're going to have beer, of course.
Beer.
We're going to have a great tournament. We're going to have a great tag match between the Grimy Scots and whoever answers them. And follow us on Twitter at PrimetimePW and like us on Facebook at Primetime Pro Wrestling. Follow me on Twitter at the Mister Gator. Mister is all spelled out. And follow Lolo.
Follow me at Hellbender Low. L0. L-O. Not 0. Just an O. Low. Not L0. Hellbender Low. Easy.
And all that information will be in the description as always. Do we have any announcements maybe for future things going on? Or we're going to foreshadow a lot of this.
May 26th, the after party. There might be some opportunities. There were a lot of folks that were unhappy about not being able to get front row seats, not being able to get reserved seats. The after party, May 26th, you may or may not have an opportunity to get tickets for another show. If we're running another show, and I can't say for sure, but we're definitely running another show. So we will have an announcement on May 26th. We will be on independentwrestling.tv following the show on May 26th. And stay tuned to Primetime Pro Wrestling's social media for upcoming announcements on the replacements in the tournament and everything else we have going on.
Yeah, if there's anything we learned this first go around is you do not want to snooze on getting these tickets when they come up. Prime time is hot property, and the first show hasn't even happened yet.
And I was just going to say that if you're banking on an opportunity to face Mikey Banker in a bar match, that's not happening. He's not legal, so you won't be here.
Right.
So
Mikey Banker is not legal in DC. He is not even close to being legal in DC. If you listen to this, or you're looking at this, tweet him at Mikey Banker and tell him how he has screwed up this opportunity for him, and how the only, or one of the biggest supporters of his, maybe not the only one, but one of the biggest, if not the biggest supporter of his in independent wrestling, who has booked him for a show and given him ample opportunity to get his license, is ready to be the end of The Godfather, and he's going to be like Kay, and Almiri's going to close the door on him, and we're never going to see him again in the district. So let Mikey Banker know that he really screwed this one up. Worse than the time he missed the bus. A legendary story about him missing the bus when we were going to have an opportunity and things having to be tweaked.
This has been Big Gold Group Therapy.
It's a new offshoot. It'll be a new series on the Big Gold Belt.
Gator really made some advancements today.
I mean, if we want to continue, there's other people I'm happy to bury, but I think this is a legitimate thing with Mikey Banker. Like, there's other people who I might not get along with or disagree with, but this is a legitimate thing with Mikey Banker. This is not a work. Like, I am legitimately pissed off at him that he's had 2 months to get his license, and he's been booked, and he knows he's been booked, and I've let him know, and this hasn't happened yet. So we'll see what happens this week. We are 1 week away, Mikey. We are 1 week away.
I think
Bit of a tangent.
that's about the third or fourth promo that Mikey's gotten. So I don't think we can top that for closing the show. So thank you to Coach, Mister Gator now, and Lolo for showing up to talk about Primetime Pro Wrestling here on the Big Gold Belt podcast. Of course, thank you for tuning in as we drop these shows. And of course, you can find the Big Gold Belt on Twitter at BGB Group on the Twitter machine. Of course, also on the Instagram and all that. Of course, I'm at Heel Will Mahoney, and you're at
2 James.
That's right,
Yeah,
2
that's right.
James. That's right, 2 James. So we're going to keep these things coming. We're excited for 1 week from now, Primetime Pro Wrestling at DC Brau, Grapitol City. We will be there, and I'm sure we'll be talking about all the events of what happens coming up on a future episode. So until next time, we'll see you later.